Good Sunday morning. Welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John Becker, and we are pleased to have with us two people who have a unique window into the best of the best in our community and also the worst of the worst. District Attorney Generals who represent communities in East Tennessee and have since 2006. Dave Clark is immediately to my left, and next to him is Russell Johnson. We're going to get to your biographies in just a minute, but thank you both for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. On the end there is Don Bosch. He is a lawyer and a Democrat and runs his own law firm.
Good morning, John.
Good morning. Susan Richardson Williams is a Republican. She runs her own PR firm.
Good morning.
Good morning. And John North is my colleague, saddled up for this conversation about something you know well, and that is the law, John.
Saddle up.
Yes. All right, gentlemen, for our viewers who don't understand what a district attorney general is or does, and the communities you represent, let's start there, because you are the top prosecutor in your community and have been since 2006.
That's right. DAs are in the courtroom, of course, and that's what people see and think of, but really the job is a lot more than that, and we do a lot of other things outside the courtroom. We're concerned about public safety, doing justice, helping police do a good job and advising them, also working on prevention and treatment and alternatives to incarceration, all designed to do justice and make our communities safe.
Specifically Anderson County, and let's talk about you, DAG Johnson, about the places that you represent and what you see in your job.
Sure. Our main office is in Kingston, which is in Roane County. Unlike Dave, I have 4 counties. Anderson County is, of course, next door and our neighbor. We share a lot of what goes on in Oak Ridge together with our Roane County efforts. Our main office is in Kingston, Wartburg in Morgan County, Decatur down in Meigs County closer to Chattanooga, and then, like I said, Loudoun County. Those are our 4 counties.
Let's talk about what would surprise our viewers at the cases you're dealing with now that may just they wouldn't expect. We hear about drug issues, we hear about domestic violence and child abuse. What is it that's dominating your district right now?
Well, drugs with the fentanyl, methamphetamine, those are what we focus on a lot. People ask, why are you so concerned about drugs? Why do you prosecute drugs? It's just drugs. Well, the numbers of overdoses that we have, especially the ones resulting in death, back in 2023, they were probably at their peak. They've come down a little bit. And talking to our DTF director, most of the overdoses they come upon, whether they're fatal or non-fatal, you're finding Narcan, so that maybe contributes to the decrease in the fatal overdoses. So drugs are always out there. Dave and I have talked about a lot how we've seen an increase in juvenile crime, violent juvenile crime, especially gang-related across the state of Tennessee, maybe not gang-related so much in my district, maybe a little more in his, but certainly in Knox County. And we may talk about some of the blended sentencing with juvenile crime. Those 2 things are kind of on our radar screen a lot these days. We've had some higher profile juvenile cases, murder cases in my district, unfortunately. And so it's every day when I come into the office, I've got a list of things I want to do or cover. And invariably I'm hit by something new and something different, a different fire we have to put out related to one aspect of our work or another.
General Clark, your perspective on cases that may surprise our viewers in your district.
Yeah, so we're all running undercover operations 24/7, 365, and that would include internet crimes against children. That's one that surprises and troubles me and is a plague that people don't always see, but it's out there in all of our communities and something that is troubling.
Generals, we don't currently have a U.S. attorney in the Eastern District. How does that impact the other parts? West Tennessee and Middle do, I think, and it's obviously a presidential appointment. How does that impact it?
In fairness, we have one. We just don't have a current presidential appointment by Trump.
Yes,
sure.
That would be
Trey
correct.
Hamilton and his assistants have worked fairly well with us. I'm envious of the Knox County district attorney who's right here, who has a very capable second person in the form of Sam Lee, the deputy district attorney there. They have a good working relationship. They're right across the street from each other, so they can be in each other's offices. Dave and I and other DAs in the more rural areas have talked about, man, we wish we would see the U.S. Attorney down here in our neck of the woods and we could talk to them and interact with them more. We sort of miss that somewhat. But I will say, with the internet crimes against children, we've got in-house an ICAC investigator who's made some tremendous cases here of late. A lifetime sentence on an individual, they call him the Taco Bell TikTok, that I think you all covered, that got a life sentence in federal court. That was one of our cases. A cybersecurity officer out of Oak Ridge was one of them as well, and then a KPD, a Knoxville police officer that was soliciting a mother and her child up in Gate City that was pretty high profile. Those were 3 of our cases. Very pleased with the U.S. Attorney's Office and what they were able to do with those. The other things we've noted here of late, especially since the Trump administration, they're taking more drug cases. Of course, as Don will point out to you, that's coming top down from DOJ in
the mothership,
DC.
as we like to say in Washington, right?
So main justice, I guess, is what we've referred to it, thanks to Mike Donovan, our former DA, who was in the Trump administration as the West Tennessee DA the first term and is now here the second term. We're anxious to see what may happen with the appointment. Doug Overby was in that position in the first administration. Doug was a state senator. He and I served in the House together, shared an office. He's obviously a friend of mine. And then, as I mentioned, Sam Lee. It would be nice to have one that has some state prosecution experience, because a large percentage of the criminal cases are brought to the office here at Knoxville, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and it would be nice to have someone that we know with that relationship. Doug's great. Other candidates are great as well.
We've got to take a quick break in just a couple of seconds, but before we do that, just your take on what that would mean to have a person that DAG Johnson describes in that post.
Yeah, they're dual systems, and it would really enhance public safety in East Tennessee if we had someone with the authority that we could speak and communicate with, so that we're coordinating our efforts.
All right, we'll be back with more of our discussion with these 2 district attorney generals. Back with that and more from Don, John, Susan, and your questions as well. Back on Inside Tennessee with 2 of the top prosecutors in East Tennessee. We're glad to have Russell Johnson and Dave Clark with us. Don?
I want to follow up something that Susan said and begin. First of all, I know both of you all very well. We've done a lot of work together, both together and against each other, but I found both of you all to be some of the best DAGs in the region, and I appreciate what you guys have done for the justice system, even when I disagree. But let me follow up on this U.S. Attorney issue. The suggestion has sort of been made that it sounds like there might be some difficulty in communication and access under the current appointee, and I say that, judicial appointee that's now permanent, Trey Hamilton. Is it different now than, say, it was maybe under Doug Overby or some of the predecessor U.S. attorneys? And I'll start with you, Dave.
Sure. I would say yes. I haven't met the U.S. Attorney, and that goes both ways, but we could use better communication and coordination. And sometimes the person that's in charge locally doesn't speak with authority, and we find that their voices or decisions are overruled as they go up the Department of Justice chain. And
well, that's not unique to this district. I'll add practicing in others.
Yeah, I think that happens elsewhere. But if we had someone that was stable, appointed, had that sort of authority, it might make a difference.
Russ, your experience?
Sure. I think maybe part of what we're talking about and what we're seeing is from our friend and colleague, Mike Donovan. We worked with him for so long. We know how he interacts and how he runs or ran the shop, so to speak, in West Tennessee, and what we expect to see out there again. And that may be what's kind of influencing a lot of what we said. I've never met Trey Hamilton. I understand he's a great person. A lot of his assistants in his office are good and work with us. And really, that's where we have to go to. He can't be there all the time to deal with us personally. And I understand he's a career prosecutor, and maybe if he's left in there, we can use this moment to work forward with him.
Looking ahead, gentlemen, you sort of touched on this in your opening remarks. You have plenty to do. I don't think your workload has shrunk in the time you've been in office. It's probably picked up. Part of that may be because the demands of what you all have to do or the statutes that you now are responsible for has increased. I'm curious if that's true, and if looking toward January there are some things that you guys and the District Attorneys Conference would like to ask the legislature for that maybe could help you out. General Clark, let me start with you.
Sure. Well, we have a criminal justice system that is chasing a new reality. Our society has changed a lot. The jails are bigger. Crime is more severe than it was, and Tennessee has a worse crime problem than most states. So there's plenty to do, and what we have to do is constantly evolving and changing. That's one of the great challenges, but also one of the nice things about our job. There's always variety. But as we look to those changes, we need help. The legislature every year is adding new laws. We've added over 1,000 police officers, troopers, and TBI agents. We need to add staff to prosecutors' offices to keep up with the case load that is coming out of these new laws and these new officers.
Are there some specific aspects that you all are going to be asking for, General John?
Sure. Specifically, we need more victim witness coordinators. That is a key role in dealing with victims, especially with the mandate of the Tennessee's Victims Bill of Rights that's constitutionally based, and then some other new legislation that has come on board as far as other legislation that we're seeking, a better enforcement of a victim's or victim's family member right to be in court for hearings and trials. To try to equal out the rights with the defendants as far as access to court and to have a role in the process. Of course, it's always the state of Tennessee versus John Doe defendant. So we always try to work with victims and their family members to get their input, but ultimately we are the decision makers and have the discretion as to how the case is charged, whether the case is taken, how it's prosecuted, whether it's settled, or whether it goes to trial.
I want to follow up on that victims witness coordinator's position. What I read about it seems really important to the victims and the witnesses that it helps that person, that coordinator helps them sort of navigate through the judicial system, it sounds like. Were those federally funded to begin with, or have they always been
some of those
state?
federally funded, I think, grant driven.
Yeah. A lot of them are state. I don't have any VOCA positions or federally funded positions. They're all given to us by the legislature. The legislature dictates to us how many positions we have as far as criminal investigators, assistant district attorneys, secretaries, and victim witness coordinators. So we have to go to the governor first and ask, and if the governor doesn't put it in the budget, then we have to go to the legislature and finance committee and whatnot to get them to put it in. And there has to be money there. So that's the dance we do every year, lobbying with the legislature. But there are some grant positions. I know Jared Effler, who's been on your panel here recently. He's head of our victims committee, and actually is the president of our conference right now, and he does an amazing job of trying to keep us informed. He's really the one that's on point for those things and does a good job for us. But yes, and with the drying up of VOCA funds at the federal level, especially under the current administration, that's made it even more difficult.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
So,
General Clark, do you use those, and do you have problems getting funded?
Across the state, we have VOCA-funded assistant victim witness coordinators, and their jobs and funding are in peril. At the federal level, district attorneys are trying to work with members of the administration to preserve that funding, but also we're trying to prepare for the loss of the federal funding. We're asking the state to take over funding some of those positions because, as you say, they are critical to people understanding and participating in the process.
We'll make a turn, Don, to another conversation, but we've got to take a quick break here on Inside Tennessee. Back with more of our conversation with these two district attorney generals right after this. Back on Inside Tennessee, Don?
So I've seen a phenomenon go on over the last 30 years, 40 years with Tennessee State Legislature, in that there are fewer and fewer lawyers that are now legislators. And what I think is a good example of problems is we have this new blended sentencing proposal from the legislature talking about juveniles receiving both a juvenile sentence and possibly an adult sentence after they age out of that system. And I think everybody is confused. And how do we apply it? How does it work? And I think that's a good example of the fact that I believe there aren't enough lawyers, and usually I think there are always too many lawyers, but not enough people in the legislature with a legal background that know how to pass appropriate legislation. Russ, I'm going to look to you first as a former legislator. Do you think that that is a problem that our state is suffering from right now?
Sure. That's always been a concern that we talk about a lot. Even when I was there in 2000 through 2006, the number of lawyers was dwindling. Some people might always joke and say, yeah, that's a good thing. But to have a judiciary committee that may not have but one or two attorneys on it.
If we're lucky.
You're totally dependent upon legal services, the lawyers with the legislature, and they're great. They were really good when I was there, and I'm sure they're still fine attorneys there. But it's nice to have lawyers that have actually worked in the system, that have defended in the criminal justice system or prosecuted. William Lamberth is a good example as a former ADA that is there. We depend on him a lot to put the brakes on things, especially the legislation that's going to affect law enforcement and for us as well. But as far as blended sentencing, kind of maybe the genesis of some of this was back when Beth Harwell was Speaker of the House, and I think it was 2017, 2018, we had this ad hoc Juvenile Justice Reform Committee, and the Pew Foundation came in and focused a lot on brain development and how a child's brain is not fully developed until 25. In a lot of states, we're looking at models that would take juvenile court into 21 years old, 23 years old, and even proposals for 25 years old as opposed to like your 19th birthday here in Tennessee. So that was the first aspect and the first change in juvenile law. It eliminated a lot of the facilities for long-term stays or lockups for juveniles, and that's created a whole issue with DCS. And now we have the blended sentencing model, which may be in some respects going a little bit in a different direction as far as the adult sentences you talked about, but right now it's very confusing. It's hard to understand. John North and I have been talking back and forth about a case we have in Meigs County where a 15-year-old female shot and killed her father, and we're looking at that. We've got a case where a 17-year-old shot and killed an 18-year-old in Harriman, and you're looking at all the evaluation process, the assessment process before you can even file the transfer petition and decide to get that place. There are numerous hearings that have to take place, and then to figure out and use your discretion wisely as to who you really want to go to adult court and who you don't think needs to go to adult court is a key decision for us.
So to be clear, because it is an important sort of change in prosecution of juveniles, neither of you guys have in 2025 applied this blended sentencing sort of legal track at this point.
I have not. I don't think General Johnson has. And across the state, it's a bit mercurial. It's uncertain how it's going to be funded, how it's going to be done. There aren't any case decisions to guide us yet. And so, yes, it's a new challenge, but a new opportunity, I suppose.
I'm not sure we've had one in Knox County either.
I do not believe so.
Yeah, I don't know that I've come across one. It's an interesting concept where after the 19th birthday, as you say, then there'd be sort of a second bell that would toll, and you might have some additional time as a no longer a juvenile, but having committed that crime that you would then spend more under a court's jurisdiction, it sounds like.
I think that's right. And this is sort of served as a battleground for competing interests in the legislature. Some folks have a certain agenda they would like to push, and others have different agendas. And so this is, we're seeing an area that's playing out in Nashville, and surely will change soon, I'm sure.
I mentioned at the top of our conversation you have a unique window into the best of the best in our society and the worst of the worst. What keeps you up at night, General?
Worrying about public safety. The cases that we didn't get to, the offenses we didn't discover, the witnesses or victims that we couldn't persuade to participate in the process. It's a 24-hour-a-day operation, as I mentioned, and so we've always got officers out there, and we've also always got crime occurring. So all of those things are worrisome and trouble all of us.
Are we doing better than we have been, General Johnson, in your idea of society and in our well-being because of your perspective?
Well, as far as what you were talking about earlier with, or what Dave was talking about there with the child pornography, what we're dealing with artificial intelligence, something we talked about earlier, the social media, the technology, what's happening to our kids. You know, I have a daughter who's a senior in high school. You have a son who's in high school, and it's just, it blows your mind when you leave each morning and they go off to school, you come home, I wonder what's going on today, or what's going to go on tomorrow. I think about all the child pornography cases that I've talked about that we've prosecuted. We're just scratching the tip of the iceberg.
The law has always lagged behind technology.
Absolutely.
And we talk about AI being transformative in every reach of our lives. Do you see that happening in what you're doing on a daily basis?
Absolutely. We're collecting many times more evidence, digital evidence, cell phones, surveillance cameras, all of those things. It puts a burden on police officers. We have to have experts to download and analyze those things, and we have to be able to present them in court. Jurors expect them as part of a trial presentation, and so it's changing everything for all of us, and it increases the demands on our system.
General Clark, General Johnson, we appreciate the conversation. Again, tip of the iceberg kind of thing, but at least it gives our viewers a little sense of what you do on a daily basis. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having us.
We're back with our final talk around conversation right after this. Back on Inside Tennessee, we're going to broaden our perspective here to Middle Tennessee because we had a bellwether election. John, set this up for viewers who weren't following this and why the country cared about it.
Sure. Great expectations for the 7th Congressional District, which is a very weirdly, intentionally designed district that goes from the top of Tennessee down to the bottom of Tennessee and conveniently sort of carves off a little bit of Nashville and then a whole lot of rural Tennessee to fill Mark Green's position. He's been a guest on this show. And you had Afton Bain, the Democrat, and you had Van Epps, the Republican, for this special election. There was some speculation or anticipation, maybe a little bit of hype, that Bain had a good shot at it because President Trump's not been doing so well lately on the national front.
Woman with a Knoxville background?
Yeah, she went to, I think it was Webb.
Went to Webb.
Yeah,
Webb High
yeah.
School.
She's, if you're watching, Afton, maybe you need to be on the show someday. Election day was not so great. I bet early numbers were really good probably for her. Election day turnout tends to be better for Republicans, and rural Republicans turned out. He won by, you were telling me, 9 points?
9 points.
So what's it mean, SRW?
Well, I don't think it means a lot. I mean, the Democrats are calling it, we can't wait till she runs again or whatever. I hope she does run again, by the way. This is a woman who lives in Nashville and has been quoted as saying she hated Nashville, hated country music. So more power to her. I hope she runs again. But he won by 9 points. It was a special election. You don't have the turnout you have in presidential years. Of course, Trump carried it by 22 points. But this was a smaller, much smaller number of voters. Matt Van Epps won the rural districts 75-80%. Incredible. She carried Davidson.
Quickly done.
Yeah, quick. This is a bellwether race, and yes, she lost. Make no mistake, by 9 points. Lost even by more than some people projected. But it's a national picture we're looking at here. If Trump carried a district by 22 points and the Republican only carried it by 9, I think that speaks for what may be coming in the midterm elections in 1 year.
Susan, you recently met Leanne Morgan.
I did.
Comedian extraordinaire.
But that's not all.
She had a little something to say to you.
She did. I ran into her in the parking lot of the UT football game Saturday and put my hand out to say, I'm Susan Williams. She said, honey, I know who you are. I've been watching you on Sunday morning for years. Inside Tennessee. I literally was dumbfounded. But thank you, Leanne. I hope you're watching this morning, and we would love to have you come on our show as a guest.
Anytime, any day. We will make the time. For all of us here at Inside Tennessee, Don, Susan, John, we appreciate you watching this week. Don't forget the all-important prediction show and the Inside Tennessee Person of the Year broadcast coming up a little later this December. We'll also have the Speaker of the House on in the coming weeks. More from us coming this December, and we'll see you back here next Sunday morning.